Hey to Chirohustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, ChiroThin, Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, Local Gold, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Winner's Edge, Accident Records, Chiro Tax Pro, Full Script, your online dispensary, Angela Pearson, author of I'm Not Contagious, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 172 of the Chirohustle podcast. I am your co-host, Luke Millette. Here is your host, Jim Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Josh Wagner, and if you want to know more about his book, You Deserve It, and the Deserving Belief, stay tuned. All right, it's always exciting to have another episode of the Chirohustle podcast. This is episode 172, and today we have Dr. Josh Wagner, and you're not coming in from New York today, you're coming in from LA.
I'm coming in from LA.
Awesome, man. Well, per our typical intro, we love to have guests with dynamic stories and chiropractors that are doing big things in the world. And my coach and your friend Larry Goodman's like, hey, you have to connect with this doctor here. And you sent me a book. I read the book. Your book's called The Deserving Belief. And I think that's something we could open up with, is talk a little bit about the book, The Deserving Belief, and what kind of was your impetus to writing that book. And I know that I read it and I loved it. So let's just kind of talk a little bit about The Deserving Belief, and then we can talk into what that can translate to chiropractors.
Absolutely. So just it's called You Deserve It.
Oh, sorry.
You Deserve It. So the reason I came up with and wrote this book last year, which has got a lot of attention, like there's media clips on CBS, NBC, ABC, is because for 5 years I was helping chiropractors with inside the office. Everything, once a patient comes in, how to create an amazing experience. So they want to tell people about you, they want to follow your recommendations, and if needed, they pay you out of pocket, which is becoming a big issue in our profession. And there's just countless testimonials from doctors using this and seeing six-figure increases, six-figure months, practice getting so much easier. But I'm not going to lie, there are chiropractors who get the material I share, study it, and it just doesn't work the same. And there's a level of self-sabotage. And we all know what that's like. Like, Jim, I know you help chiropractors get new patients with marketing and, let's say, Facebook ads. I'm sure you've had an experience of you're doing your job, like your software, your programs, your campaigns are getting new patients in the door, but the practice isn't growing. Like, there's some other self-sabotage on the back end. That's what I realized over the past 5 years with working with chiropractors and just being a student of self-growth myself, is there's more than just the processes. There's more than just the words and the fees and the care plan recommendations. There's the mindset, which is more than just like not procrastinating, choosing to do the work. And that is whether or not believes they deserve having the success going after. So you can flood a doctor's practice with new patients and they could still have trouble putting their kid through school. I'll give you an example. It's called Groupon. I know a lot of practices that could get 80 to 100 new patients in Groupon, and the practice suffers. And the doctor's like a chicken with their head cut off running around, and the collections actually go down. And then the reputation of the practice suffers too with what's written online. So there's multiple components for practice success. One of them we're not going to talk about here is certainty in your technique and whatever services you offer. Two is processes that actually work today, not that worked in the 80s and 90s, which a lot of practice management is based on. And the third is the subset of mindset, not just rah-rah mindset. We're not talking Tony Robbins. We're talking about, do you truly believe you deserve having the practice you want, having the collections you want, having the income you want, having the fun and ease in practice? And we can get into it, but there's a lot of reasons for chiropractors, unfortunately, unlike dentists or accountants or name your profession, that undeserving beliefs sabotage income and practice success. So this book is written for anyone, whether you're focused on relationships, losing weight, making money, but chiropractors can 100% relate to it, how it affects their practice growth. Does that make sense?
It
Absolutely.
does. So this book is for everyone, not just chiropractors.
This is applicable and beneficial to everyone, but chiropractors specifically, based on all the professions I've worked with, have the most tendency to have an undeserving belief when it comes to success, growth, things getting easier, making more money, all of that.
So where can people find this book if they were interested in ordering a copy?
Easiest way is on Amazon.com.
So what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see chiropractors making that this book could help them with?
So one of the biggest mistakes is chiropractors think that patients have to get it, meaning understand care, agree with the reasons why the chiropractor is giving care, and accept it. Not accept recommendations, but accept whether it's the chiropractic premise, the chiropractic philosophy. And by the way, guys, if you want me to share my chiropractic story, I am one of the most philosophical chiropractors you will ever meet. There's a difference between what's in my head and my heart and what comes out of my mouth with patients, or what's on the wall, or what's to read. So a lot of chiropractors self-sabotage with thinking patients have to understand chiropractic in order to pay, in order to refer, or in order to just follow recommendations to get their best healing and best results. That's the first thing.
Yeah, if you wanted to elaborate on your chiropractic story a little bit, we'd love to hear that.
So I'm a sophomore at New York University in Manhattan, undergrad, and somehow chiropractic pops into my mind. And I do what I knew to do at the time. I went and sought out chiropractors to ask them, like, hey, what's this profession all about? Do you like it? What recommendations would you have for me? And I started spending time with a few different practices, successful practices. They took me under their wing, really great chiropractors and mentors. And at the same exact time, a year into it, both of them said to me, Josh, if you really want to do this, you really want to go to chiropractic school, you want to do this right, you want to learn from the best, show up at this address in Brooklyn, 7:15, Thursday night. And they both said it at the same time, a year into knowing them. So I was like, there's got to be something about this. But Brooklyn at that time wasn't fancy, expensive Brooklyn now. This was, train tracks overhead, graffiti everywhere. You don't want to at night. You don't take a date to this part of Brooklyn. But I trust them. They're my mentors. And they say, just show up to this house, front door's unlocked, find the steps down to the basement, and then just go and work. It's like, okay, am I being hazed? What's going on here? I show up to the house, unlocked. Again, it's in between buildings, and it's not a great neighborhood. It's dark. Front door's unlocked. Find the door down to the basement. It's already creepy. It's like you could tell it's an old person's house. It's like musty, and like everything's yellow toned, and going down to the basement, and the basement's lit up, and I could see as I'm walking down the stairs just rows of literally like church benches that were taken, put in a basement, all facing a blackboard, and a dozen adults just sitting there waiting, and no one's talking. And I sit next to one of them. I introduce myself. He tells me he's a chiropractor. And a few minutes later, Pasquale Sarasoli comes from the back of the room to the front. And if you don't know Pasquale, he's considered the godfather of chiropractic. He died a few years ago. He passed a few years ago. And he was about 9 years old. And Pasquale looked like Einstein with the crazy hair, the big glasses. And he spoke every Thursday night to a group of chiropractors, past patients, staff on chiropractic, self-growth, philosophy, religion, love, passion. He just bled contribution, generosity, and giving. And he had practiced for 30 years out of his home with a line wrapped around the block in Brooklyn of families coming to him 7 days a week, charging $1 adjustment when he started and $5 when he retired, and then had been contributing to chiropractors in the profession through his weekly talks. That experience, getting talks with Pasquale, going and doing some of the seminars and events he would do, And really getting to hang with him taught me so much. And he never taught technique, practice management, communication. He taught what's in here. And I can boil down all of his teachings into 3 words. And now this is what I focus on with chiropractors. This is what I focus on with the deserving belief. So all of his lessons in 3 words that could be applied to every patient interaction and every aspect of practice and every aspect outside of practice comes down to tone over bone. Tone over bone. Pasquale Sarasoli's mantra, Tone. So you could take it on every level, from the adjustment itself, tone over bone, your intention on giving that adjustment, your force application on giving that adjustment is more than the technique you choose or even what bone you line up on. Your interaction with patients, tone over bone, bone is the words you say. Bone is a script if you use one. Tone, what's your intention? Is your intention that you really care about that person? Is your intention that you want to open them up possible for their health, their healing, and their life? Or is your intention to sell them? It goes both ways in our profession. What's your intention in practice? What's your intention with your staff, your associates? In any interaction, tone over bone. That's why 10 chiropractors could go give the same exact talk, the bone, or go do a screening at the same location with the same audience. And those 10 chiropractors will have 10 very different results in terms of patient signups, because tone is always over bone. And so much I find in our profession is chiropractors are chasing the bone. They're chasing what's the next script, what's the next marketing approach, what's the best location to practice, what's the best technique. Tone is where it's at. So tone is, do you believe you deserve having the practice you want? Tone is, do you believe you deserve having easy referrals and new patients flow to you? Tone is, do you believe you deserve having or making X amount per month? And if you don't own that, if you don't develop that tone, that deserving belief, you could have the best marketing, the best practice, the best front, the best tables, and there will be self-sabotage. And you guys, I'm sure you've seen it in your own life, you've seen it in clients. It's just a fundamental aspect of human being. There's the procrastination, there's the bad habits, there's self-sabotage everywhere. But when you own a deserving belief towards what you're going for, all of that stuff that you get distracted by, you just get laser focused, you take the steps forward, and then there's just life's synchronicities and serendipities that happen that move you along your path so much faster and so much more easily than if you didn't believe you deserve what you're going after. So that's tone over bone in my world with chiropractors and the doctors I teach.
So how do you think the chiropractic profession would change if everyone started reading your book and applying it to their lives?
You know, I focus more on the chiropractor to chiropractor rather than the profession as a whole because, since this profession started, 1895, it immediately split off into tributaries in different philosophies, ideologies, politics, and technique. And it's only continuing to spread. So you bring up a topic with 10 chiropractors who do the same exact technique, and there's going to be disputes about it. So instead of thinking about how the chiropractic profession as a whole is, each chiropractor in your own practice, when you own and create and strengthen deserving belief for your practice success, you're going to see things change even without having to do new things. Like some doctors realize, you know what, if I honed my technique better, I'd have more confidence. Or if I did more talks, or if I did talks, people would know more about me. Or if I invested more in this realm, I'd get more exposure. That's all valid. But when you own a deserving belief, you don't actually have to do anything differently, and things start to change. Or you start taking the steps that you need to do that fear or uncertainty has stopped you from doing. So really it just comes down to every doctor in their own practice. You're going to see more of the growth that you want. Is it more new patients? Is it more referrals? Is it more collections? Is it your staff respecting you and doing what you say or having the right staff? Is it patients respecting you and following your direction or recommendations? That's what it comes down to. It's unique for every single person.
So just a little side question here. On the topic of talks, do you ever do talks about this book? Do you get stage time?
Well, so this just came out a few months ago. So I've been on CBS, NBC, ABC for actual news segments. I haven't been I haven't pursued doing live in-person talks specifically about the book to non-chiropractic audiences.
Well, news spots, that's a great way to start off.
Yeah, no, that's been great. And what's beautiful, it's extremely easy to understand and to digest. Everyone can understand. And most chiropractors, when I pose this question, do you truly believe you deserve the practice you want, the practice you've written down goals for, the practice you're going after? When most doctors are really honest, the reason they don't have it, or the reason they know they're self-sabotaging, or the reason it feels like a grind, is because there's some undeserving beliefs. And that's very common, both just as a human being. If you grew up with parents and they had a certain economic viewpoint, that often gets transferred to the child. If you grow up in a profession or learn in a profession like chiropractic and everyone has a different opinion, then it's hard to formulate your own. It's hard to anchor onto something that's really strong for you, and it's easy to be spread thin. There's many aspects just from being human that impart undeserving beliefs, and there's many aspects, unfortunately, in our profession that sabotage good chiropractors. And I say good chiropractors, like chiropractors that mean well, who are great at their approach, their technique, however they practice, but have been taught to say things that they wouldn't say to a family member who's a new patient. And what happens then? Well, I'm saying things to this stranger, this new patient who's in my community, who I wouldn't feel comfortable saying to my own mother. That causes some rewiring in the headspace of a chiropractor for like, should I be doing this? Is this right? Just because someone on stage told me to do it, or this person over there I saw online says they make this much because they say that. But if they don't feel right about doing it, that causes undeserving beliefs. Like, I don't believe I deserve this patient to pay me, refer to me, stay with me. And it's very common in our profession, unlike most other healing modalities, for patients to just disappear, not refer. The chiropractor sees the past patient in the supermarket and there's like this awkward reaction, or neither of them want to interact with each other. Like, that doesn't happen in most other professions, let alone healing professions. Why does it happen in ours? It's because there's a lot of stuff that ends up being taught that chiropractors don't feel good about, and that causes an undeserving belief for success.
Well, you've triggered me a little bit by some of the things you're saying, because a lot of chiropractors don't want to ever be seen as being regular people. They don't want to be seen as that they can get a head cold. They don't want to be seen that they can not feel good. They have to perform even when they don't want to perform, and they have to like have a certain style of persona based on being the doctor. They can't say, hey, I don't feel good today. Like, they have to have this congruent message that says, I'm Superwoman or Superman, and I don't get sick and I don't feel bad. And yes, I see that as like a persona that chiropractors also have to uphold, that they think is like their path. And then one of the other things I wanted to bring up is a friend of mine. He was all in on insurance, and he is practicing in Chicago. And he came out here into Colorado and opened up an office. And he's like, yeah, we'd get together, me and my buddies, we'd adjust each other, then we'd go to lunch. And we'd go to my one buddy's practice, and he had like the STEM units, and he had different types of modalities he would do. But all we'd do is go lay down, get checked, get adjusted, and then we'd go eat. And he goes, that's the type of practice I wanted to do for my friends and family too. So I cut out all that stuff that I would bill insurance for. And I just went back to the basics of telling people what it is, checking them, adjusting them, and treating people the way that I wanted my family to get taken care of, and the way that I wanted to take care of my friends as well. So I think a lot of what you're saying is we have to have congruent methods, whether it's how am I going to build a practice of someone else's dreams, or how do I show up and just be myself?
Absolutely. You said that perfectly, Jim. Like, and for your example, there are certain chiropractors that do things, let's say services, that they don't necessarily believe in, but they've been taught, oh, you get paid well. And there's certain chiropractors that do services they absolutely do believe in. So, it goes both ways. And I support any doctor if no matter how you practice, very at the core philosophical and straight. But you may do a bunch of stuff. If you truly believe that's in the best interest of the patient, I support you. I'll help you build a practice that way. But it's great what you said, because yes, a lot of chiropractors, that same example, I was doing all these things, getting reimbursed by insurance, come over here, and now I see it could be done a different way. The typical chiropractor, based on how most doctors are taught in this profession, think, well, if I do 3 modalities and I'm getting reimbursed for 3 modalities, but then I switch to just what I'm congruent with, and I just do 1 modality, that I'm going to have to cut my collections and income by 2/3. And that's scary. Like no business person is legitimately going to do that. And as a chiropractor, if you own your practice, you're a business owner before a doctor. We can get into that if you want to. But here's the thing. Going from 3 modalities to 1, if you're choosing to only get reimbursed by insurance, then yes, you're cutting your income by 2/3. But if you realize people aren't paying you for your service, they're not paying you for the adjustment, they're not paying you for the amount of time you spend with them, the length of the care plan, or anything else that everyone in chiropractic has taught you patients are paying for, and you realize that patients are paying you for an outcome, and they're paying you based off on your certainty, you could charge twice as much for that 1 modality or that one service, the adjustment, rather than the 3 or 4 modalities you would have coded, make twice as much money with 1 thing rather than 3, have happier patients, and life practice just gets a lot better. Now, we can dive into that a lot more. A lot of chiropractors that just heard me say that can't even understand it. It's crazy. But like, chiropractors have been so hit that each service, each code equals this dollar amount, equals this many minutes, and this time length of care equals this care plan, and that many number of new patients equal this amount of money. And it's actually doesn't have to be that true that way.
You made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, ChiroThin, Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, Local Gold, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Winner's Edge, Accident Records, Chiro Tax Pro, Full Script, your online dispensary, Angela Pearson, author of I'm Not Contagious, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle.
Well, here's the other part of the congruency there is, do you work for the patient or do you work for the insurance companies and the PI attorneys? And that's where you have to wonder who's lining your pockets. Is it results and outcomes, like you're saying, that we really support, that we're, wanting to get for the people we're taking care of? Or do we get fearful about how we're actually earning? And I think that that's a big part of like the carrot in front of the practitioner is, well, I can bill out for this, but just because I can, should I? And just because I can be accepted in this realm, should I? So that's a big awareness step that we have to bring to light, because I think a lot of times when people do get into that type of merry-go-round and they're like, well, I can bill out for 3 things, but I'm only delivering the 1 thing that I really like doing. And at that point, am I working for the patient or am I working for an industry that supports me as a chiropractor?
Yeah, agreed. And I just want to make sure that this isn't going into, if you do PI, that's incongruent or that's bad, or
no, it's not.
Things can sway both ways.
Mm-hmm.
There's doctors who just do 1 thing because they're very righteous about this is the only thing. And you know what? They could have recommended some other things for the patient to do that would have really supported their health and well-being and getting the results. But they're so righteous and so staunch on like, no, this is the only thing. Maybe just giving you a hypothetical, C1, and I'm never going to give it another recommendation outside of that. It goes both ways.
Yeah, and I'm the first to tell you I support all walks of life within chiropractic profession. I like the mixers. I like the straights. I like the people that graduate from National. I like the people that graduate from Sherman. I like the people that graduate from Palmer. I just like a parent would say, I love all my kids the same. But as I've come to learn chiropractic, there is like a certain, like you said, you're very philosophically sound. And when you have a strong philosophical stance, that's been passed down to you by somebody you've learned from, or things that you have read. and experiences that you've had. So sometimes people aren't experienced into philosophically sound practice, and they're like, well, I just want to make money. Well, good on them. Go make some money then. So you have to like them all.
Right. And again, it impacts our profession more than PTs, dentists, MDs, pediatricians, no matter what, because there are so many different philosophies, ideologies, techniques that everyone has a different viewpoint on what chiropractic is, what's in the best interest of the patient. Even the people that agree with what's on the best interest of the patient, let's say a technique and a philosophy, have completely different protocols. There's no standardized protocol, unfortunately. It's a shock to most of the public. And that causes chiropractors who, it's the 2 out of 10 that'll graduate from school and just on their own and anchor, hey, based on what I've learned in my experience, this is the best way I'm going to take care of someone. Most aren't like that because their chiropractors are inherently really good people. They're honest. And we have a gift and a service that doesn't have a A, B, C, D approach, like for a cavity or for a root canal. There's a way to do that. Or operating on a shoulder. But if you're an honest chiropractor, you realize this is dynamic. So what happens is we gravitate towards people who are teaching us how to do it. And through the history of the field, a lot of times, good chiropractors get taught stuff to do that isn't congruent with them, that turns on an undeserving belief. For instance, care plans that are catered to how much could we get reimbursed from an insurance company. That now, what I see over the past 10 plus years, depending on your state as insurance declines, those same care plans that could make $100 or $1 million practice easily are sabotaging cash collections. So it's like what worked catered to one environment doesn't necessarily work towards another. And it's a blessing and a curse. The curse is there's no standardized. The blessing is you get to create your own, choose your own, but you've got to be certain about it.
And then comes the other part of the business model is it's not how much you collect, it's how much you keep.
Of course. And there's a lot of, on that model, and this isn't just in chiropractic, this is general in humanity. And of course, chiropractors are business owners, they're entrepreneurs, they're more growth oriented and goal oriented. But a lot of people don't even know what they're really going after. It's like they're chasing the buzzwords. They're chasing $1 million practice or get the Ferrari or, name your thing. And so many of us, and this is what's in the book a lot, we burn out and we struggle to reach a point, a goal that makes us happy, or that we think other people are going to then think we've made it or care about us. And it's not what we actually want. Like for instance, in our profession, the $1 million practice is oftentimes touted as like a milestone. And a lot of chiropractors who maybe, have a $700,000 practice beat themselves up. But two fronts. You can have a $700,000 practice and actually take home more than $1 million practice, or you could get that $1 million practice, be taking home more, but not like practice. Is that worth it? So I also find a lot of chiropractors don't ask the right questions. Again, unique to them. Like, is this really what counts to me? Is this what's important to me? Is this what's going to make me happy? And is how I practice and every interaction I have with every new patient, is this improving the impression of our field, the perception of our field in my town? Is this leading me to become the go-to chiropractor in my town? Or is this, let's see what I can get from insurance from this patient, and then I'll just keep doing it every month?
Well, that's just it again. Back to the narrative that I suggested earlier. Who do you work for? Do you work for yourself, or do you work for other industries that you're a part of? So we have to really consider, as the practitioner, who am I out there to make an impression for? Am I out there to make an impression for my practice and keep an overhead that's substantial for me? Or am I out there to prove to my colleagues in the profession that I can hit that $1 million carrot? Or I can, run a $700,000 practice, but I'll never see enough new patients to get to the $1 million. And darn it, I'm a failure. No, dude, you made $700,000 and you kept over 60% of that. Like, that's a real success to me.
Absolutely. Right before COVID hit, I did a seminar in Connecticut. It was literally during that seminar, all the chiropractors in the room pretty much heard, okay, we don't know if we're going to be able to practice on Monday. So it was a weird tone. And there's a doctor who's been in practice 32 years, and Connecticut's very insurance friendly, it's for years, it's been very easy to just get reimbursed. And he's had $750,000 practice, 32 plus years, low overhead, doing well. But over the past 5+ years, insurance isn't getting as easy, and never had the understanding or skills, never needed to, for patients to pay out of pocket. And he sent me a text 2 weeks after, and this was right when Corona hit. This is close to New York City, volumes down. He's like, Josh, patients are paying me out of pocket for the first time now. And practice is fun again. And it's not because the patients are paying out of pocket. It's because what he learned in terms of how to change his headspace, how to communicate, made it easy, made it fun. And when you say who you're working for, when you realize that your patients, even if you get reimbursed by insurance, if the patient doesn't show up, you're not getting an insurance check. So the insurance company might be paying, but your income is based on your patients. And when you realize when it's your patients who are paying you, directly or indirectly, and you change your headspace and your practice lingo, instead of so much about chiropractic, which no patients really care about. They care about getting well, getting back to their life, and having their best life. And you change your tone, your headspace. It's all about that. And that you're there to just help them get that, and you're very certain, and you're very honest, you will see patients pay you so much easier. You don't have to understand what a subluxation is. And that's not putting down subluxation. They don't have to understand phases of care or degeneration or C1. They actually don't. Just like when someone goes in for cancer treatment, they don't understand what the radiation is actually doing. They don't understand they just trust the doctor, and they hope it'll get them well. And when chiropractors can come with that level of certainty, professionalism, and authority, they realize they can spend so much less time educating and end up getting paid directly by the patient so much more, get more referrals, get more retention. And the education can come along the way. And that's what's beautiful. You can still educate. It's just the more you do up front, oftentimes the more sabotage that occurs.
So I have another quick side question here. Did you used to struggle with your own thoughts of deserving?
Oh, absolutely. And I share this amount in this book. Everything, everywhere. Relationships, financials, practice success. Absolutely. Great question, Luke. There isn't any human that doesn't have some area where there's an undeserving belief. Whoever your role models are, titans of industry, whatever, they've obviously performed at a level in the top 0.01% compared to humanity, but in some other area, there's going to be undeserving belief. And that's just part of being human. So we all have it. And part of real growth is looking at, hey, where's it out? Where's it missing? Where's the grind? Let me put more attention there.
So as you've been on this journey of yours, who are some of your chiropractic heroes, whether they be living or passed on?
Yeah, so when I first, like I said, my mentors introduced me to their mentors. And living, let's say it was Pasquale Sarasoli. It was, I used to fall asleep listening to Sigafus CDs. And I got to, go to Sigafus gatherings and see him in DE before he passed. Sid Williams, Dick Santos, Reggie Gold, I got to before he passed on my drives back and forth from Atlanta to New York, those 14-hour drives, stay over at his condo outside of Philly with Irene Gold, his wife, and just pick his brain. So yeah, growing up, and I know people know those names, those are icons in the field. Those were the people I really absorbed their their talks, their teachings until, and this is important, until I owned it so much that I didn't need to. And that's something I see a lot in our profession is if you need to go and get spiz, or if you need to go and get motivated, you don't own it. If you own it, hey, I'm all for comradeship and connecting with colleagues and fist pumping, but there's a difference between it's fun or you need it. It's a difference between, you get burned out every 3 months and you need to go back, or you own it and you're just going back because you love it. So those were the initial guys. Then in school, I was a practice management junkie. I learned from everyone. And people that stand out to me now that I'd still endorse, technique, Arnaud Bernier for, again, it's not a technique, it's an approach. Absolute beautiful technique. James Chestnut, I think, is amazing when it comes to analogies and getting, it's not about chiropractic. Rather than understanding subluxation, just the understanding of health and healing and using analogies. John D Martini for all of his work, not necessarily in a practice management but from in a personal growth and headspace aspect.
Lots of awesome names there, man. Like, I look up to a lot of those people as well. And, Luke and I are not chiropractors, but I've learned a lot about the principles of life from listening to Reggie Gold. I've learned a lot about human connection from D Martini, and just being able to have access to people like you said, Sigafus, and being able to understand why he could grow a big practice in the middle of nowhere. And I think there's a lot to be said about the heroes in this profession and why it is so unique and why it is so amazing, and some of these iconic names that we're drawing to. And if you wouldn't said this to anybody else, they'd be like, who's that? But because we know it means something to us. And like you were saying, Pasquale Celler-Soli, I never met the guy, but I know he's had such an impact on other people's careers like yourself. But these are iconic names. Like if I went to anybody in town, I said, you know who BJ Palmer is? They're like, no. Is he a golfer? People wouldn't even know. They're like, did he get drafted by a football team or something? People wouldn't know who BJ Palmer is. But because we're in this know and we can talk about these iconic names, I think it's really cool. And I think it's also really awesome to hear who's inspired you and some of the people that you've studied under and some of the reasons you are who you are today. It's cool.
Thank you. And it's just so important to have mentors, and especially in whatever area of life is most important to you. So, I have a mentor I speak to every week. Wouldn't know his name, he's not famous, but my life over the past, getting up to 10 years now, just dramatic difference it's made. So, and I see that with so many chiropractors. I'll get on the phone with them, and in 15 minutes, I'll show them something that's completely sabotaging their practice. And if they didn't get on that phone call, if they didn't, again, it could be me, it could be someone else, get out of your own head. Someone contribute to you and go seek that out. And having consistent mentorship makes all the difference in growth.
And this brings up another quick offshoot question for me. Who are some of your non-chiropractic heroes?
Do you mean in a sense of business, personal growth, or sports, or
entrepreneurs, athletes, motivational speakers? Who else have you aspired to be like, or who inspired you as you took this journey?
That's a good question. I actually didn't think about that necessarily beforehand.
No problem.
Wow, I'm sorry to blank. Let's keep going. And something that's
back to that one. So what's some really good advice you would give to a doctor who's struggling right now?
Going back to the original tone over bone, are you chasing the bone? Are you chasing the action and not focused on the tone, like developing certainty, confidence, deserving belief, power? Because when you have those, any of the bones are going to work. But when you chase the bone that it seems like working for other people, but you don't have power, deserving belief, confidence, certainty, it's going to self-sabotage. So that's meditation, whether that's, like I teach a very specific process to develop your deserving belief in the book. You've got to, whether it's mentorship, you've got to find out what it's going to be. But on your own, going through day after day as you normally do, it's probably not going to magically generate a new tone, a new deserving belief, more certainty, more power in who you are and how you show up. That's why you do the same things, get the same results.
So this is kind of the part of the show where we find out a little bit more about you personally. What are some other books that you enjoy reading? What are some podcasts you listen to? What are some of your hobbies?
Cool. Okay. Back to now that you said books, I started reading, I believe it was when I was going into grad school at Life. I read Neil Donald Walsh for the first time. He wrote the series Conversations with God, book 1, book 2, book 3. That would be one of my non-chiropractic influences and mentors. And I'll tell you, I probably learned more about chiropractic from that series of books, because it's about life, it's not religious, than a lot of the famous names I dropped. And that's no disrespect to the famous, it's just showing how powerful those books are on cultivating your understanding of a life done well. So I love personal growth. I love Neil Donald Walsh. Ram Dass is another speaker who for years, he just recently passed last year, I think. Loved listening to him. Wayne Dyer, love outside of the chiro profession. Hobbies, I'm so simple. I do my work. I meditate religiously, at least twice a day. I love shooting baskets because I grew up playing basketball, but not playing basketball anymore, just shooting baskets. It's like a moving meditation for me. I read, I take walks, and I love going out to dinner to my favorite restaurants. I'm really simple. Those things, I'm good. What were the other parts of the question?
We should get together and play horse.
Do you listen to any other podcasts?
I'm not a podcast guy. I don't have any that I listen to regularly. So there's none out there that just are like, yeah, that's my go-to.
Tell us about your meditation habits. You said twice a day. What are you listening to, or how are you? How do you meditate? Like,
yeah. So
people are confused by it.
Right. I have different approaches now, and I endorse, hey, anything, just do anything as long as you're seeing results. To start, I started off, what got me to start it daily and not quit was because I paid for it. So I paid $1,500 to do a 2-day meditation course, transcendental meditation at the time, and it served me well for a certain amount of time. And then I moved on to other things. But it was the fact that I paid for it that I kept doing it, because, maybe day 8, it's like, I'm not really seeing much of a difference. And if I hadn't paid for it, I would have ditched it. So that's understanding, like, investing in yourself. So every single day, first thing in the morning, I'll do some type of meditation. So it might be the deserving process, which is what I teach in the book. And that's what strengthens or creates a deserving belief. It may be a purely just like blank slate. I'm just monitoring my thoughts. It may be a visualization type. I don't listen to any meditative audios unless it's mine. Like, I have a deserving process where I'm listening to my voice. So those are the different types I do. And later in the day, it turns more to gratitude, visualization with emotion. So those are my meditative techniques. Do you meditate?
What's that?
Do you guys meditate regularly?
Oh, every day.
Every day, both of us, yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
So the book is You Deserve It. People can find it on Amazon. What are some other websites or social media links you can give people if they're interested to learn more about you or your book?
Sure. So if you're a chiropractor, if you go to patientmastery.com, you're going to be able to watch, it's like a 45-minute video that's going to show you the 3 strongest strategies I teach every client that pays me, and I'm for free. And there's a lot of just watch that, take it, and see great change. So go to the site, watch the videos. You could find me on social media, Facebook, but just dive in, get the actual strategies for how patients can pay you, follow you, how to structure care, how to recommend care. So it makes sense when a patient thinks insurance is going to cover everything, which is the typical person coming into your office, whether it's they have the $5,000 deductible, no coverage, or you've just chosen, I'm not working with this insurance company because it sucks, that you can take someone who comes in with, here's my insurance card, what's the copay? And with a beautiful, elegant, professional, powerful experience and conversations, have it so they not only want to pay you out of pocket for the care, but still want to refer their friends in or their family. And that's the win-win-win. Because a lot of times it's like strong-arming or aggressive tactics to get patients to pay. It doesn't have to be. You can actually inspire them to pay. And that's when practice gets more profitable, gets more fun, gets easier.
Inspire to pay. I like that. I'm going to make that a bumper sticker. Well, we're just about at the edge of our interview. Is there anything that we did not ask you that you wanted to touch on?
No, I appreciate people know me, patientmastery.com. The book's there or on Amazon. And appreciate all you guys do for the profession, sharing different points of view, having a platform for people to connect, learn, grow. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being our guest today, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.
Cool. Be well, guys.
Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, Doc.
Take care.
See you soon.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.